All right. Director Stoner, are you back?
Hello, I'm still here.
Thank you. All right, we will reopen this meeting and we're on number 4, the consent agenda. That's one page with that. Moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Demare. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Is there any business arising from the minute? Seeing none. Moving on to 6.1.1. A request for decision on the Canada Community Building Fund, Community Works Fund, Project Fund request. We have Director LaFrance. Okay, hello.
Oh. Can I ask where we're at?
Yeah, right. You may. We are at 6.1.1 on Community Works Funds. If you
Okay.
wanted to, yeah, go ahead. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, so these were developed by UAS staff, and we did receive each area's approval for usage of their Community Works Fund. And so this was recommended to the board via the EAD for approval. And I can take any questions.
Are there any questions from anyone? Okay, would someone like to move the first 2 DATs, which are $30,000 allocated to Braylorn Water Service from Area A Community Works Fund, and that $26,000 be allocated to the Braylorn Sewer Service from Area A. We can move the first 2 together.
I'll move those.
Moved by Director Graham, second by Director Rainbow. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. And then the next 2 that moved by Director Rainbow, seconded by Director Demare. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're now moving along to 6.1.2. Electoral Area A zoning and OCP bylaw amendments for the Braylorn Adventure Lodge, first reading. And we have Director Needham here.
Thanks, and I think Miss Mackay is in the waiting room, I hope.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, Ms. Mackay. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
We're on 6.1.2. I will turn the floor over to you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So good afternoon, Alex Mackay, planner with the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. So this report is regarding an zoning and OCP amendment application that we've received. It's for electoral area A, specifically for the Braylorn community, or for a parcel in the Braylorn community. So as I just mentioned, it's both an OCP and zoning amendment application. This is a 4.47 hectare subject property. It's currently zoned RR2, which is Rural Resource 2, and designated residential and resource management under the OCP. And this is an application to bring existing tourist commercial uses on the parcel into compliance with the zoning, as well as to expand the year-round commercial uses on the parcel. So overall, the property is a gently sloping property. It's got a couple of creeks that impact it. So it's got a Blackbird Creek runs north-south through the property, and there's a creek to the south of the property as well. So both of those create riparian assessment areas on the parcel. The property is bounded by 2 roadways. So there's the Lillooet Pioneer Road to the north and an FSR to the south. That provides the main access point. At present, there are a number of driveways you might see on the site plan that traverse adjacent private property, the applicants are proposing that those all be decommissioned and all the circulation associated with the tourist commercial use will be internal to their parcel. In terms of servicing, the property is connected currently to existing community sewer and water infrastructure. But the SLRD has recently completed a project in Braylorn to update the sewer system that's stubbed at the property line. And so we will be making it a condition of any potential approval of this application that they do decommission that and connect into the new system, since this will represent an intensification of the uses on the parcel. So I did already mention there's 2 riparian assessment areas that constrain the parcel. We are in receipt of a geotechnical report, so it's a technical memorandum, and there is presently a covenant registered on the parcel that stipulates a flood construction level of 1.5 meters. This technical memorandum indicates that it would be safe to reduce that to 0.6 meters. So you'll see in the staff recommendations that the applicants are looking to replace the covenant with a new one that's consistent with that technical memorandum, so reducing the flood construction level. And so in terms of the proposal itself, there is presently a residential building on the parcel that's being used for tourist accommodation, so that's what they need to bring into compliance. They do currently have zoning for bed and breakfast use, so they don't need to do, there's no zoning amendment required for that, but they do need to complete a change of use permit to bring it into compliance and make sure that that structure meets the BC Building Code requirements for commercial use. In addition, they're proposing up to 8 new accommodation units, so those would be in the form of serviced cabins of up to 325 square feet each. They are looking to potentially use those for housing, for employee housing for BC Hydro workers to begin with, before it would revert to tourist accommodation use in the future. In addition, in terms of new development, they're looking at doing a common facilities building. So that would include a garage. It would include an accessory dwelling unit for a caretaker who would be present on the parcel at any time the tourist accommodation is occupied, and it would have common washroom facilities. And then, as I mentioned, they're looking at revising the circulation on the site, so some new driveways and parking as well would be developed. So I'll just speak briefly to how this relates to SLRD policies. It is consistent with the official community plan that's in force for Area A. So that official community plan indicates that local residents support commercial development, generally speaking, if it is located in those community hubs of Braylorn and Goldbridge, which this is. The OCP would require an amendment, and that is to redesignate the existing parcel from residential and resource management to commercial, and tourist accommodation is a permitted use in the commercial zones for commercially designated lands under the OCP. In terms of changes to the zoning bylaw, as I mentioned, it's currently zoned RR2. What we're looking at doing is a new tailor-made zone, which would be Tourist Commercial 7. Under that new zone, there would be 4 uses that are currently permitted on the parcel that would carry forward as maintained, and 2 new uses. So those are as follows. So new uses, the 8 rental guest cabins that I mentioned, accessory dwelling unit, which would enable the caretaker unit to be built in that garage or separate structure. And then the 4 maintained are single family dwelling, bed and breakfast, campground, accessory buildings, and accessory uses. The applicant was hoping to have some flexibility in terms of where they end up locating the 8 tourist accommodation units. And so what we worked with them to do is to identify an area of the parcel that is outside of those riparian assessment areas that I mentioned and can be serviced by the existing sewer and water infrastructure. So you'll see that's shown on the location plan, which is page 8 of the report, or 91 of your package there. So there are a number rather of conditions that will need to be met in order for this project to proceed. Some of these will have to be met before the OCP and zoning amendments could be given consideration of adoption, and some will need to be met before building permits are issued. So I'll just quickly go through those. There's the servicing requirement that I mentioned. So again, the owners will need to decommission that connection to the old sewer system and connect into the newer system. We would require confirmation of that before consideration of third reading. There's the covenant, again, that they wish to discharge and replace with a covenant that's consistent with the new technical memorandum. At this time, they haven't prepared the covenant, but you'll see in the staff recommendations when I go through them in a minute that we are looking to, we're seeking board approval to proceed with working on that with them and get that in place before any building permits could be issued. And then finally, there's the change of use permit that they need to secure for that existing building that's being used as a lodge. So staff are recommending that the subject bylaws be given first reading and that the referrals process be initiated, as well as that the board authorize the discharge of that covenant, which will enable staff to work with the applicant on a new covenant that's consistent with the technical memorandum. So I'll leave it there and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Alex. That was a very good report. Got a couple of questions for you. The SLRD part, which is one of the private properties, there's a couple of cabins in there. I'm just wondering if there's going to be a little bit more screening back there. Looks like they're just using the current vegetation that's there right now. I'd like to see a little bit more vegetation there for screening that part. If it ever gets developed, you know, eventually we'll get, it does get used by people. We've got a picnic table there, but eventually it's going to get developed at one point. So I'd like to see some more screening there, if possible. I've had conversation with that company over the years, and they've actually developed some type of a responsible conduct for their guests, and they've been adhering to it pretty good. But I just want to confirm that because they are right in Braylord. And is there going to be a public hearing for the rezoning?
So yes, thank you through the chair. I'll just go through those in order. So with respect to the screening for the SLRD park, that's certainly something I will take back to the applicants and we can have them develop a little bit more of a plan for what that decommissioning of that driveway is going to look like and what the landscaping associated with that will be. So yes, that's something we can definitely have a conversation with them about. I'll look into the responsible conduct piece and see what they currently have in place, and I can include information on that in the next staff report. And with respect to the public hearing, yes, there will be a public hearing. If this is given second reading, we will be doing a public hearing for this application. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Go ahead, Chris.
Just process-wise, and I appreciate Director Demers' comments, but I guess I would expect things around screening and so on to be as part of DPA guidelines or land use or land contract, like sort of a later stage. So are those things that we would at the SLRD capture in the rezoning, or is that typically part of a subsequent process?
Thank you through the chair. So we can have a bit of a conversation around it with the rezoning and ask that they include it in the site plan, but you're absolutely right. That's more part of the development permit process. So when we get into the development permit process prior to building permits being issued, there's wildfire protection guidelines and that piece. And we can look at, I think form and character wouldn't apply in this case because it's not multifamily residential. I'll have to take a look at what we have in Area A, but certainly there will be a way to ensure that those objectives are met. Thank you.
Okay, would someone like to
Can
move?
we move them all at once?
Looks like it, yeah.
I think I'll second that.
And seconded by Director Herford. Any comments? Okay, all in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, 6.2.1, recreation service report. Services, fees, and charges by law, and do we have Suzanne for this? Great. Fairly straightforward. Work. Reports, right, because they're not a human application. Yes, okay, so we just have to support it. Okay. Yes. Okay, would the directors like to move this? Go ahead, we can move the first three, so first, second, and third reading,
Yeah,
and then we'll
who's
do
that?
the,
I'll move that, please.
and seconded by Director Richmond, comment? Okay, all in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries, and a motion to adopt, moved by Director Matt, seconded by Director Richmond. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And funding for Pemberton Animal Wellbeing Society dog enclosures. Would someone like to do that? Director Matt, seconded by Director Richmond. Question?
Yes, so just so I understand this, how does the money get there? Like, how does the money get to the Pemberton and District Initiative Fund and the Arts and Culture Recreation Stream? Where does it come from?
So to try to give it to you really quickly, a number of years ago, or for years, people would come to Village Pemberton and say, hey, can you support the Public Initiative? Or they'd go to Area C, can you support the Public Initiative? And we'd often say, sure. Make sure you ask Area C, or make sure you ask the Village Pemberton, or, we go back and forth. And then we finally went, we should bring our funds together, make it what we thought would be a little bit simpler. We created 2 grants and aids funds contributed by Area C and contributed by the Village Pemberton taxpayers. That fund sits in its own cost center, and we.
And then okay, just, thank you.
Okay. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carried. All right. We are moving on to 7.1, bylaw 1501-2016 amendment bylaw.
Thank you. Through the chair, Angela Belsham, Director of Legislative and Corporate Services. The proposed Squamish-Lillooet Regional District Director's Remuneration Bylaw has been updated to reflect the increase in annual indemnity for the board chair and board vice chair. This is in response to the staff report that was considered by the board on April 25th of this year. So staff are presenting the proposed amendment to the bylaw for pre-readings and adoption. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Go ahead, Director Matt.
No, I was just gonna
You're
move
gonna move it?
that and that.
The first 3 readings and seconded by Director Rainbow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries, and move adoption. Moved by Director Matt, seconded by Director Rutherford. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. And now on the SLRD ticketing system bylaw notice enforcement. Turn it over to you. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Are you just here to answer questions?
Yes, I'm just here to answer questions. Sorry.
On the report? Go ahead. Or do you want to move it? Moved by Director Mayor, seconded by Director Mack. Questions or comments? Last chance. Seeing none, all in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries, and that was for the first 3 readings. And now move adoption, moved by Director Mayor, seconded by Director Mack. Favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Yes, you need this. Okay, we're moving along to the CAO verbal update.
Hi, everyone, good afternoon. 2 updates for you today. One of them is just about the UBCM Advisory Committee on Emergency Management Regulations. Many regional districts have put names forward of their CAO, or if they are so fortunate to have a Protective Services Director to sit on that. I would like to, I'm just advising the board that I've made recommendations for Director Mark Phillips to be attending that, to be on that committee. Hopefully, there's a lot of people's names who have been submitted forward, so hopefully that is successful. Easier update. It's a great opportunity for us to have a voice right at the UPCM level. And also an update, which an email, save the date will be going out later today, about the Casper Creek and Downton Lake 2023 Wildfire Recovery Town Hall. The date is May 29th, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. Representatives of the SLRD will be there. Representatives of the province will be there. And again, like I said, the save the date will be going out later today with technical how to connect with orientation.
Any questions? Given that, if someone may receive it for the report, please. Moved by Director Mayor, second by Director Herbert. Comments? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Carried. Now we're at 8.2. And we have Ms. Stewart. Good afternoon. We're at 8.2 and we would love to hear your summary. We've read your summary, but if you'd like to talk to the waves on that report on Regional Affordable Housing Forum of 2024 that was held in Whistler last month, I'll turn it over to you.
Excellent, thank you. So my name is Claire Dewar. I'm a senior planner at the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District. I'll give a really high overview of the staff report that's included in the board agenda package, and then I'm happy to answer any questions that the board may have. So as was mentioned, the purpose of this staff report is just to provide a summary of the Regional Affordable Housing Forum and outline next steps. So the SLRD convened the Regional Affordable Housing Forum on April 18th at the Squamish-Lillooet Cultural Centre in Whistler, BC. There were over 50 attendees from local and First Nations governments, industry, and nonprofit organizations. Objectives of the forum were to provide an opportunity for regional representatives to share goals, initiatives, challenges, and ideas for affordable housing, to understand high-level housing needs in the region, and to identify potential collaborative high-level ideas for advancing affordable housing. I'm just going to skip forward in the staff report to really focus on some of the next steps piece. One of the pieces that we committed to at the forum was to provide an input summary report and the presentation slides to attendees. So this has been completed. And then the next step was to provide information and ideas generated in a summary report to the SLRD board. So that is what is before the board today. And then the third step will be for input to inform the RGS review, consideration, and policy development in 2024. And there's a little asterisk there noting that any new or revised RGS strategic directions related to affordable housing will be brought forward to the SLRD board as part of the RGS review consideration process. I thought it might be nice just to highlight a few of the pieces from the input summary, which included initiatives to be scaled up, being partnerships, nonprofit capacity, and housing authorities. And some of the big ideas to explore included identifying land, creating strategic partnerships, advocating for more housing, sharing of resources, including a regional housing authority, and regional coordination on housing needs assessments. So as I mentioned previously, the SLRD will be considering an RGS review in 2024, and there's opportunity for the input from this forum to inform consideration of the review, as well as potential areas for new or expanded policy strategic directions. But I will leave it there and happy to take any questions that the board may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Director.
Thanks, Claire. It was a great forum. Thanks to staff and everybody that put that on, by the way. I enjoyed the day. Lots of sharing, and lots of the items that you just listed and that came out of it were sort of sharing related. And I think that's incumbent on all of us as partners to make sure we're taking those steps and making those moves, whether it's for shared advocacy or capacity or whatever. So I think that sort of hopefully will happen naturally if we keep that top of mind as organizations. Things like, you know, exploring a regional housing authority, some of those more sort of exploratory items that came out of there. Am I hearing you right that we're going to wait through the RGS review to start looking at how pursue some of these or are there other thoughts? And again, I use the Regional Housing Authority as an example. Are there other thoughts as to how we as a collective pursue some of these explorations?
Oh, you're muted, Claire.
Thank you. So through the chair, I guess there are a couple ways we can think about this. With the summary report that's presented to the board today, that is really just a collective summary of the input and ideas that were received at this forum. If the board feels really strongly about some of the things that were either heard while participating at the forum or that have been highlighted in that summary report, and there's a desire to make a resolution to ensure that that is included in some next steps, that's an option for the board to consider today. There's also just the option to receive the information. In terms of just the overall picture and how it ties into the RGS review, staff are going to be, digging into some of that input a little bit further too, and, looking at our existing strategic directions and seeing if there are some gaps. And then that work can be brought forward to the SLRD board as part of the RGS review consideration process. So I'll leave it to the board to kind of think about how, if further direction is desired at this stage, or if that is to come at a later date.
Thanks for that, Claire. And along those lines, some of us attended a regional housing forum together 9 years ago, and whenever it was. And there was some good discussion there, and honestly not, probably between organizations and staff, there was some doors open and some channels created, but I feel like that work was just left. And I don't want to see what I thought was really good conversation and sharing at this forum. I'm glad it'll be, incorporated into the RGS, and I think that's really important, but I just want to make sure we don't, and I'm using the Regional Housing Authority as an example because it's one that I heard come up at different tables at different parts during the day. And if we are serious at some of these things that came out of the forum, then I'd like to see us, again, as a collective approach, start to chase them down a little bit and see what they look like. So I guess I'm saying this to the board, I'm encouraging us not to just let the work that we did that day just kind of get filed away again. Be it the Regional Housing Authority or any other recommendations that came out that are summarized here. I'd like to see us, if not right now, consider how we want to pursue them a little more concretely. Thank you.
Director Stoner.
Thank you through the chair, and appreciate Director Richmond's comments. One that feels really timely to me was the suggestion around regional coordination on housing needs assessments, given the timing that all of our local governments are pursuing that work. And I'm just curious if we're too late in the game to address this now, or if it's something that we can actually action to try and find some regional coordination on those housing assessments that we all need to update based on provincial legislation.
Thank you. So through the chair, I might let Director Needham answer this question because as I have not been super privy to the RFP process that's underway for the SLRD housing need assessment. I will say that I think there's an opportunity for regional collaboration following the provincial housing requirements, where all of the timelines will be more synced, because currently our housing need assessment and the when those reviews are required have not been aligned in terms of timing, but I'll maybe let Director Needham speak to where we're at in the SLRD process.
Kim Needham, Director of Planning and Development Services. We engaged in a contract with a service provider to complete our housing need and demand study, as we're up against a January deadline to complete that study. But I certainly think that in our RGS review, we can speak to regional coordination on subsequent studies. So that we can all perhaps have some cost savings and have our study done by the same consultant.
So it's too late now.
Yes.
Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. Would anyone like to move receipt of the report? Gil, second by Director Hoffel. Any comments? Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I thought it was a great event, a lot of great conversations. I did feel like we were just at the start of a conversation. I would have, aside from not having any time, would have loved to have 2 days to have a day to meet everyone, digest things and come back to discussion. But on that same note, I wonder if there's something as simple as us posting a staff table every 6 months or something. And little more than that from our part, just to keep the ball rolling. I think trying to speak a bit to Director Richmond, like, is there a very low barrier thing we can do to just keep sort of more regional conversations and solutions happening? I don't want to dictate new staff work, but yeah.
Yeah, through the chair, we do have usually 1 or 2 meetings a year as part of the RGS steering committee, which is all the basically planning staff for the region. And so affordable housing usually is an agenda item at those meetings.
Then can I ask that the pursuit of and how we would look at a regional housing authority gets added to the list or the agenda for that meeting? And again, I don't want to make a motion saying, hey, let's go do it. I don't want to throw work at us right now. I'm trying to avoid that while not letting them lose excitement. So whether it comes from one of our organizations or collectively from our staff, I think it's worth pursuing and looking at. So I'm trying to find a way that's not to do that without saying, hey, go off and go do this now. So maybe is that a good spot for us to say, you at a staff level, you can have a discussion about a regional housing authority and what next steps for that investigation would look like. Is that a good spot?
Yeah, I think so.
Go ahead, Jenna.
Never mind, I'll leave it there. I think that's a good place to start. I'm not sure those are all the right people to have in the conversation, given the existing housing authorities are typically separate from staff. But I think that's a good starting place, especially given where we're at with potential units coming online within the SLRD and how we're going to manage those. So I think that's the initial place for the conversation. Happy for it to land there.
Great, thank you. So I have a motion moved by Director Richmond, but I don't have a seconder yet. Is there a seconder? Director Crompton, comment? Go ahead.
I also found the coordination of the housing needs assessments compelling. And even if there was a meeting to discuss at this regional coordinating session and compare notes, because we'll have to do more of these in the future. Like, housing needs assessments aren't something that is done and then finished. And so maybe we didn't have the time to actually coordinate on at this time, but let's make sure we've had a conversation about what these are and how we can make sure that they make sense in a regional context and they move together. And that's certainly something that I'll pass on to our staff as well, a real desire to continue to be coordinated. But I want to say, I think it was really good work, and it's nice to see the SLRD taking that regional leadership role. And I think that gets me excited about what this organization is. I was about to say what this organization can be, but really what this organization is. And so good work to both of you and everyone who put it together, because that is leadership that is needed and is well.
Thank you. Any other comments? Being none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you very much, and thank you. All right, we have Director LaFrance. We've got the 2023 audited financial statements for the auditor's report for You're gonna move that, moved by Director Richmond, seconded by Director Demers. Questions or comments for Director LaFrance? Being none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And the Q1 financials as presented in the package, also for receipt. Or questions, we'll start with questions. Does anyone have any questions on the Q1 financials? Don't see any. Would someone like to move? Moved by Director Demers, seconded by Director Herford. Comments? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And we are on 8.5, a request for decision on the Bridge River Valley Wildfire Recovery Marketing NVIT Marketing Initiatives Grant Application. I'll turn it over to you.
Perfect, thank you very much. I am Mark Phillips, Director of Protective Services with the SLRD. This request for decision is seeking board approval for a grant application to the NVIT Marketing Initiatives Grant Stream for $20,000 to support the Bridge River Valley Recovery Marketing. This project addresses critical need for tourism and marketing strategy to support the operators and partners along the southern portion of Colton, including Bridge River Valley. Region businesses are still building and recovering from the tremendous financial burden of the past years, especially the 2023 wildfires. The NVIT Strategic Marketing Initiative Fund funds up to $20,000, but it'll be further bolstered with $30,000 of support from the Caribou Golden Coast Tourism Association, who will build and execute this marketing plan. Proposed timeline here of this initiative is from June 2024 to November 2024. And through the project's marketing efforts, we expect to generate an increase in tourism revenue across the BRV region, flowing through local communities, tourism operators, food and beverage businesses, regional park and historic sites along the entire region, with the hopes of becoming an economic driver for communities and tourism operators and their partners.
Thank you for that. I totally agree with this, but I've got a couple of comments on it. I'd like the CCTA to look at Destination Canada Regenerate Tourism. It's got some really good stuff in it. I had a look at it. And the other one is the Tourism Pepperton, Lillooet, and the BRVCA combined to do a range beyond range tourism initiative. And what it does is it actually starts to target certain user groups. And we've got the users that are going to come up into the valley of tourism. We want to make sure that we target those user groups. And another key component for me is in the draft SLRD Area AOCP update. I'm not sure if they've looked at the tourism aspect of it, but they need to look at it because there's a lot of the population there doesn't want tourism. So we need to make sure that they look at it and they understand what the community wants to see. One comment. We had one business up in Braemar fold this year already. It was on the fly market. They're no longer. And the pub up there in the fall was closed for 3 months. And earlier this year for 1 month. Between COVID and the wildfire, it's really gone down. I've been working with Tigers Adventures because of the Gun Creek Trail into the park is the main entrance into the park. And that Joe Creek Bridge burned. And they got 2 other bridges farther up that BC Parks is they have to rebuild them. So we made a polygon of the area. And that's the main trail that Tigers Adventures uses. So I'm still working with them on that issue. So all those pieces need to be part of this campaign. It's definitely needed. Thank you.
To the chair, yeah, very much appreciate those comments. I'll take them back to, our recovery coordinator and also the triple CTA. I will note, that we do have an economic, recovery table, that includes triple CTA, Virgin Valley, and they have been discussing parks and all the park plan opportunities to support, the operators in the area. And, full credit goes to triple CTA, who've really been pushing this and kind of leading this marketing campaign, and they've been in contact with all of the operators within that area to make sure that this plan works for them and is in support of how they would like to see that marketing campaign. Very much appreciate the comments.
No more questions?
Oh, sorry, Jenna. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, just clarifying that we are basically acting as a pass-through and grant management for this, but it's being operationalized by somebody else. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the marketing campaign and execution of it is being led by the triple CTA. There may be some reporting requirements that we have in terms of the grant, but the vast majority of the work will be done by the triple CTA, with support from our recovery unit coordinator.
Great, thanks for that clarification. And further to that, there's staff time allocated within the grant to cover the cost of that?
No, there, through the chair, no staff time is not captured as part of that grant application.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Okay, moved by Director Mayor, second by Director Huckle. Comments? All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Right. And 8.6, information report regarding the 2024 SLRD Emergency Operations Center seasonal readiness.
Thank you very much. We actually have our emergency program manager, Mr. Puska, here to present on this topic.
Good afternoon, Mr. Puska.
Good afternoon, Chair and Board. Can you hear me?
Yes. Floor is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Mike Fuska, and I'm the SLRD's Emergency Program Manager, and I'm here to provide a brief update on the readiness of our Protective Services Department to respond to emergencies this summer. As described in the information report, all electoral areas in the SLRD are currently much drier than average, and the watersheds of areas C and D are both much drier than last year. This has caused a reduced risk of freshet flooding this spring, but will contribute to the ongoing drought conditions, which increases the potential for severe wildfires. It's important to bear in mind that the overall risk for wildfires really depends on weather conditions that can't be forecast more than a few days in advance. If we get a lot of precipitation this spring and summer, we may see very little community impact from wildfires. But it's also important to recognize that if we get a lot of hot and dry weather, the ongoing drought conditions could make any fires that do occur a lot worse. With that in mind, our current approach to Emergency Operations Center readiness is to plan for the worst and hope for the best. We've prioritized tasks that can be completed given our short windows, EOC activations, and our limited staff capacity. We are still very much involved in disaster recovery tasks related to the last summer's wildfire season, and we've already had our first EOC activation for wildfire this year. These priority tasks include resetting of our Emergency Operations Center with critical incident debriefing from last year, implementing lessons learned, and the conduct of a large-scale regional exercise in March. We've also been sourcing potential contract staff for our Emergency Operations Center so that we have the surge capacity during sustained activations. We're developing an agriculture emergency plan using contractors paid for with grant funds from the Investment Agriculture Foundation. And we also have our Fire Smart program, which is engaging directly with community members and farmers to increase disaster resilience. There's more detail in the information report, but I think I'll leave it there and welcome any questions that the board might have.
Go ahead, Director.
Do we have in the electoral areas, do we have a campfire ban at the moment? I know we're doing some in the municipalities.
Through the chair, no, we do not have campfire bans implemented by our own local government. I understand that we don't have the bylaws to do so, but the Crown land outside of municipalities and First Nations is covered under the provincial fire bans.
Yeah, I've had questions, or comments that we really should have a campfire ban throughout the Sea to Sky. So how do we do that? What can we do in the short term? What should we be thinking of in the long term?
Through the chair, I understand that campfire ban could be possible if we established a specific area by bylaw and implemented it in that way.
Good chair, I will add, yeah, we very much are supportive of, I know the many municipalities have implemented fire bans, and it's already been supporting of those campfire bans. As Mr. Fuska mentioned, is that we do, because we do not have bylaws, we fall to the Wildfire Act, and we follow the Coastal Fire Center and the Summer Fire Center in terms of their fire bans. Right now, there's category 2 and 3 bans. Campfires are still allowed in the region.
To the chair, are there any other regions that have a bylaw for campfire bans?
Through the chair, I can't, not fully knowledgeable on that, but I will say, in doing a quick review of other regional districts, I found that it's usually based off of fire protection area. So it is the boundary of that local fire department, and happens to be within municipalities, they have their fire protection area. That is, they are covered the whole jurisdiction. So there is, I've seen some precedent of a fire ban being put in place for a fire protection area that is managed by that fire.
So, yeah. I just follow up on that.
Right.
So, take the Botanic Beach Fire Department, for example, they have an area that they're responsible for. Could they impose a campfire ban?
Through the chair, I believe it's possible, but I think if this is something that we'd like staff to look into, we could look into get a better understanding and steps that could enable potentially put that in place.
Do we need a motion for that?
I'm gonna go to bid first.
Okay.
Okay, just to follow up on that, I know that question was raised in the Lillooet area at the very well attended and very successful presentation that we had for the farmers on fire smarting, and the fire department just responded that, you know, in order to maintain their credibility, in part, they weren't interested in putting in a campfire ban until they absolutely needed to do it, and the conditions have been relatively cool, and so they were holding off. They were certainly asked that though by the local people, and they had thought about it and decided against it. I wanted to just say the work in Area B around fire smarting and some of the meetings like the one I just mentioned for the farmers and agriculture people have been really well done, well participated in. Thank you, staff, because that's been a very good effort. And certainly, I mean, there's some very obvious reasons why people are very motivated, but it's really been good to see. Yeah, and also your communications and activities on the recent Truax fire. Well done. Thank you.
To the chair, so for Lillooet, if we put on a fire ban, we don't have the manpower to enforce that fire ban. So we are under the Kamloops. So my understanding is that if Kamloops was to enforce that for our region, then they would provide that enforcement. Okay. Yeah, so some municipalities, we just can't do that, right? It just, we just don't have the people to do that in their time.
If we chair, it is something that needs to have some research into and make sure that we are fully understanding how it's being implemented, like our ability to actually enforce it, and get another number of aspects of it.
Right, because I didn't understand that until the question came up, why aren't we doing that for our municipality? That's big, there's a bit. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Right at the moment, in the Sea to Sky corridor, we're having wonderful, a wonderful spring. We had fresh snow coming through function this morning. We've had lots of rain in Darcy. We've got fresh snow on top. So I don't think we need to overreact. BC Wildfire Service will certainly be telling us when it's time to, they'll put the campfire down, and then they will enforce it through their fire wardens. I think we just
we kind of need
follow
to
their
be
lead.
coordinating a little bit as much as they have far better resources than we do. Yeah.
Thank you, through the chair. Just want to make a couple of comments. One of them being that, as I understand it, from a provincial perspective and from backcountry BC Parks ground land perspective, one of the core focuses is for people to understand and know how to backcountry and recreate responsibly. It's a bit like adding the seatbelt and teaching people how to use the seatbelt. Future generations really knowing how we're going to have a campfire and how to properly put it out is part of this. And then also the idea that the conversations of us having a bylaw, although we are in a position right now with a beautiful spring that we all hope embraces us with occasional sunny days with a lot of precipitation, perhaps a long road to get us ready should we be in a position to need the bylaws to immediately execute. Maybe it's not this year, maybe it's next year, but this is a perfect time to go with this road ahead of us. What levers need to be in place in order for us to have that bylaw support in order to say in 2026, 2027, we might need, keeping in mind that what will come back from the staff perspective is the problem of these.
So one final thing might ask that in future years, maybe we could have a discussion at the regional level when campfire bans will be imposed. When municipalities go ahead and do it, so then some people from municipalities go out into the rural areas and have fires, and then and I'm not criticizing or complaining, it's just true. And so I'm getting questions. So if we were to agree that we'll wait until we see Wildfire impose the ban and then order it at the same time.
I think what might be interesting is I'll circulate the report back on what we heard from that 3-day session that I attended in Canberra. One of the big things that came out of that presentation was that campfires actually deal with a lot of the fuel in camping areas. And to CAO's point, you can't have it, well, I mean, you can have an outright ban, but it doesn't necessarily get the behavior that we're looking for. And so it would be interesting, I think, as we've just done a regional housing forum, it might be interesting to be kind of a regional emergency preparedness forum in a future conversation, so that we can all understand sort of our responsibilities and the interfaces that we live within, not to create, and I'm not putting a motion on the floor, but just an interesting discussion. I think there's always really great topics at UBCM and SILGA and LMLGA where they talk about local government's role in wildfire and that sort of space, how we as a region want to approach coordination and collaboration around enforcement, for example, might be an interesting topic for us to consider. And I think that I think it's no secret that we're very well served with our protective services department, understanding and really collaborating with the municipal services as you do. And so I think we can certainly capture that in the future. And, perhaps that's a conversation around strategic priorities, which I think we're always looking at, where we're at with that. I'll go to Director Patton.
Yeah, just building on that, and it's debating how to raise this because I don't wanna throw on new tasks on them, so I think it probably is in part a strategic priorities discussion, but you know, over the past year, what's become apparent to me is a misunderstanding in the community of our responsibility, our capacity, and I think a mistaken, you know, people see the level of response and assume it's because we're refusing to respond as opposed to it's not our role to, and or we are simply beyond our capacity. And so I think there's a piece of helping the community understand our role and responsibility. And I think partly goes to, you know, I think we've seen with the area funds and so on, and I know we want to be cautious about autonomy there, but you know, we're inadvertently building in expectations about our ability to respond financially, and some sort of clear articulation, I think, around what level of financial response we can or will provide, and then making sure that fund somewhere, if that's what we're committing to, is available. Because right now it feels very ad hoc and people aren't really understanding what's available. I worry that we're setting expectations we can't meet if the disasters keep coming at the pace we're on. And so I feel like there's a fairly big discussion to decide what do we want to voluntarily take on as regional government, because in theory, the province should be handling most of this, but if there's demand for the community to take on more, let's take it on. Let's be very explicit though about what we are and aren't taking on, and we can have that discussion with our community. And I don't know what the answer is, but I feel like everyone's working on a bunch of assumptions right now, and it's causing a lot of frustration because we're not all on the same understanding or on the same page.
Thank you. Okay, any other? Thank you very much for your report. That was we've already moved it. I can't remember, did we have a moved by Director Mayor, second by Director Jones. For their comments?
Yeah,
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
just one, thank you for all the response to that Trip Street wildfire. And BC Wildfire also, they get coffee with it. They did a really good job, and the equipment there that they needed. I watched for the helicopters doing a circle and taking it up the creek, dumping it steady, one after another. And they did a good job taking care of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All in favor? Is there any opposed? Motion carries. We are at 8.7, which is an informational report for Individual Valley Wildfire Training. And this is a late submission that was approved in the agenda, not bringing it to you.
To declare a conflict of interest.
Okay.
As my daughter is an employee of the ERVCA, and my wife is a director.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much. Report, I'm Mark Phillips, Director of Protective Services. This information report is intended to provide further information and context to support the board as they consider the BRCA request for funding and support the Valley-wide training program. And then follow up to the resolution when that was made at the April board meeting. Just to lay out some key information as we've been learning more about the assessment and other opportunities. Starting off with that firefighting, essentially the dangerous activity. Conducting firefighting activities without firefighting experience or knowledge or how to properly participate in initial attack or respond without BC Wildfire Service supervision or guidance carries significant risks to health and life. There is a new and exciting opportunity that is being led by the BC Wildfire Service called the Cooperative Community Wildfire Response Initiative, or CCWR. This initiative is designed specifically to provide a safe and effective means for community response organizations to become prepared to join in wildfire response in their communities and be led and supported by BC Wildfire Service. For the 2024 wildfire season, BC Wildfire has engaged with 5 fire response societies within the Richmond Valley to participate this year. Those 5 are Gun Lake Fire Protection Society, Braylorn Fire Protection Association, Gold Bridge Fire Protection Society, Lake Rakers Association, Marshall Valley Rakers Association. BC Wildfire Service is also offered no cost to those participants for courses which are considered the base training requirements. In terms of the BVR-CA Valuewide Training Program, I do note that this program has been running consecutively since 2013. And staff at the BVR-CA are delivering the program and currently taking registrations for the course up to July. SLRD staff see the value of the current offerings being requested by the Valuewide Training Program. But we do believe that the focus of the training audience should be on the response societies of CCWR participants and not necessarily the general public. As you look at the courses, they are often quick events, fire fighting courses. Several of the response societies in the Richmond Valley have communicated to the SLRD that they have enrolled members in the courses provided by the Valuewide Training Program for this year. The BVRC has advised the Fraser Basin Council that the BC Wildfire Service Support Training, as listed above in the report, are not required for Area A. Fraser Basin Council, with this information from the BVRCA, has made a decision to stand down offering this courses to the society. Initial engagement by SLRD staff with several response societies in the Richmond Valley has indicated that going forward, they prefer to engage directly with the SLRD and BC Wildfire Service when requesting and or organizing support for specific training and or resource needs. In terms of next steps, staff believe that it is important for the SLRD to support the selected CCWR response societies in their preparations to become effective CCWR participants. SLRD staff also deem it important to empower response societies to channel for community member engagement in wildfire response and CCWR response. Our team is also had several meetings with several of response societies in the area and are hosting a meeting in early June with all of the CCWR selected response societies in the Richmond Valley in June to discuss preparedness planning for the upcoming season, discuss how they would like to engage with BC Wildfire Services as it relates to the CCWR courses, and also how they would like to organize and communicate support requests to the SLRD related to wildfire training and resources. It is staff's intention to bring a report to a future board meeting regarding opportunities to support CCWRs across the entirety of the SLRD. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Question? Go ahead.
So the request for funding Valuewide training would be then declined if we go through this process that we're laying out. Am I understanding it correctly?
Good check. There is, I think, as staff recognize the value of the offerings that are being provided to the CCWR societies this year. I think there has been a conversation with many of the leads of those societies. There is uptake, and they are utilizing the Valuewide Training Program to provide some of the training. I don't believe it's adequate to what they're looking for, but it is, they are taking advantage of the training. So I do not necessarily think that it is necessarily, I think there's, going forward, so we have a clear path, but I think there is importance to, that you see there's about 42 years large for this side. It's just not 100% clear that it's not just societies, it's also the general public who are potentially receiving these courses.
I'm just gonna, Heather.
I had a late in the day conversation with Fraser Basin Council yesterday on this subject and asked if they would fund retroactive because they have the funding for this. This is provincial funding for this training is available, and they've been told to stand down because it's already organized. I asked if they would retroactively fund those participants who are members of the fire response teams that are part of OCWR retroactively. They said, because of how the process is being done, they're not comfortable with that. They would need to completely control it from cradle to grave. Now, at that point, the question was, okay, how do we do that? Because the question is, if there's funding available for the province, can we save taxpayers' money and all? Can we save pills and go through that? And really, yes, that's a great priority. However, organizing training now for them separately, because they would want to start from the beginning and not go through, not piggyback on any process Brevik has done for this. It's going to delay this training by months. So if 90% of what we want is to follow and support CCWR responses, you can look at it that way, but we've got a huge risk of not training people in time. So what one caveat has been outlined here is that although this does mean co-funding and not provincial funding, it does. Some guardrails could be put on that first, that the fire response members be given first opportunity to sign up for only specifically the training that BC Wildfire Service is asking, requiring for CCWR. Because there is other training in that training program that's fantastic. It's mitigation, it's safety, it's chainsaws. And they all are fantastic. Would those be considered just to optimize getting as many people trained as possible? If there isn't enough people trained that are part of the CCWR fire response groups, then Fraser Basin will have to come in and train again. They're looking for a specific number of uptake. So if there's just 3 people trained over that entire group, they're going to say, well, we need more uptake on training for CCWR fire response groups. Does that make sense?
I think so. It's complicated. Director Stoner, and then I'll come back to you, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for the report and the update. There's just a line in here that I didn't fully understand. It says the BRBCA has advised the Fraser Basin Council that the BC Wildfire Service Supported Training Program as listed above was not required in Area A. Can you provide some clarity on why that would be the case?
Through the chair, I think that is one of the pieces that I'm hoping to gain out of the meeting that we're gonna have in June, is about the communication with the Fraser Basin Council and the channels by which, because I think the channel by which those CCWRs want how they want to communicate with BC Wildfire Service. An initial understanding is that it doesn't necessarily that wasn't necessarily the voice of those response societies. So I think there just needs to be some clarification to soft reports.
Okay, and then I did have a follow-up. So the training that has been secured and scheduled currently by the BVRCA, does that put those members in appropriate standing to be part of the CCWR, or are there still gaps for them to be recognized through the CCWR program?
So if I just repeat the question and just do that.
Can you repeat the question, Jenna?
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand if the training that has been secured and scheduled by BVRCA would put the members in like the appropriate standing or give them the training that they need to be recognized by the CCWR, or if they are not eligible unless they go through the CCWR process that's been laid out by Fraser Basin Council.
Yeah, through the chair, my understanding is that the courses, the 2 courses that overlap between the BVRCA Value Training Program and the CCWR is the S100 and S185. There's 2 standing courses there, ICS and also an online fire smart risk reduction course. are the minimum training requirements. So there is an overlap. There's still extra work to be done by the CCWR. So does the evaluate training program does not fully meet the CCWR requirements. There are a number of courses that go beyond the minimum requirements, such as wildland crew leader, chainsaw safety, etc.
Okay. Director Petco.
Yeah, and sorry, I may have missed it because it was a late addition, but so it sounds like we're okay for next year. We're sort of clear on how we're gonna handle it. For this year, the ask from last month is attached. Are we being asked to reconsider that ask now, or are we sort of understanding that while not perfect, the board doesn't need to do anything today, we've got in place something good enough to get us through this year? Or are we being asked to actually reconsider the BVRCA funding for this year?
Through the chair, I would like to, refer to Angela or see Paul in terms of the process. Basically, but I do recognize the value in this year's ask and the board supporting. I do have concerns about it, but I do see it. I know it's not a very black and white recommendation, but it is how it is.
So staff are directed to bring more information to the table. At this point, that's what we've done. Without it being a request for decision, because that stands as that the request from the request is there already from last meeting, which we're revisiting this meeting, which is attached to the package. And I think to be aware at the moment that although not perfect, exactly what you said, the risk of delaying this training doesn't outweigh what we're considering here. There's just too much of a risk of delaying the training by going through a provincially funded route. We can recognize that we're spending PILT money that the province could be funding instead. So we'd like that recognized. And it's worthwhile because should the province manage this, the delay in training would be months. I do have confirmation from Fraser Basin Council that this at the moment is only a one-time program. This program is only for this year.
Yeah.
Most of these programs start early this year and sometimes extend, but it's something to consider for future years. Our hope is that for those training sessions that are supported for CCWRs, that member response groups have priority to attend, so that we're not repeating this process again through Fraser Basin Council. If that's the case, then Fraser Basin Council can then take the funds that are earmarked for Area A and put them into other areas. Otherwise, they'll have to wait, see who's been accredited, cross-reference how many people are required to be accredited, and see if more.
And so then to clarify though, it sounds like what I'm hearing, I think from staff is that it would be reasonable or even preferable, recommended, I'm not sure, I don't want to put words in someone's mouth, but for someone from the board to move last month's ask, move support of last month's ask.
I would say yes, and respectfully ask perhaps that a guardrail be put on for membership, CCWR fire response memberships to be given priority for those courses. This is a great training program. There's no point delaying it. If we can prioritize who's getting trained on those items, that would absolutely justify the cost that instead of going back to the province to fund it.
Through the chair, so.
Sorry, Russell. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going back.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, I just think that this is extremely important to get this funding forward. Get these people trained up now, not next month or 2 months from now. And as far as the Fraser Basin Council, that can all come into effect for next year. It seems that, and back to bureaucracy again, whether it's provincial or whoever, nobody ever seems to think it's important now. Well, it is important now. The other thing too, so this is the S100 and 185 courses are at the top of the list priority wise. Those, you take your course, you need to take a refresher every year. Now, the people that are involved up there should, yes, get first priority, but if there's 25 people, fine and dandy. If there's 50 people, make sure they all get trained. I mean, the more people, you need all the bodies you can possibly get. So if people are coming forward saying, yes, we want to be involved in this program, let's take advantage of that. So let's move this forward, get the funding they need to get this done. And then worry about the Fraser Basin folks in Wallin or the province for next year. So.
And yeah, to clarify, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And not to only have the courses, first fill it up with, and then open it up, to absolutely, get as many people in there as possible.
Yep.
Okay.
Do you want me to move that?
I'll let Tori ask the question.
No, that's okay, because that's exactly what I was gonna say. I agree, Tori. Yeah.
Okay, moved by Director Mack, second by Director Rainbow. Further comments? Okay, all in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Does anyone need a 5 minutes?
Well, fine, so.
On this note.
Yeah.
When there's a letter that's obviously, that's to someone who's in conflict of interest on it, should a message go to that organization to say, please refer your letters to the chair of the organization? It seems strange to me that the person who is addressed in the letter is the one in conflict.
I think maybe we'll bring that into,
Sure, yeah, that sounds good to me.
why don't we bring that back later on?
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel very sort of bad for Director Demare, because every time something comes up, he has to declare a conflict because his wife and his daughter are associated with the PRBC or whatever it is. But the fact of the matter is, like, what he's advocating for here, I don't get the conflict part of it. I mean, he's being overly cautious with his conflict thing. We know where the conflict thing is coming from, one individual, potentially, right? I think he needs. Pardon me?
Matters of conflict of interest or.
Yeah, I totally understand that, but I think that he's doing it for the right reasons, putting this forward and other stuff too. To, better his community, and for him to have to step aside every time something comes up.
Can we take this to?
I don't agree with it. Now, that's for him to decide, but
Yeah, we'll have
Can I just
that.
make one comment on
Maybe
it?
no.
It's
Okay.
I don't think we should do anything now. I don't think we should tell an organisation, don't write to your director. Because that person will not always be the director.
Of course.
And what we want people to do is write to the director. So the conflict stuff's separate.
I would say a request for funding goes to the board. Those should be addressed to the board. It's not really addressed to the director. I mean, it happens that way, but I think that's a process question that we should, someone please bring back Mr. the Mayor.
Did you say we were having?
Like 5 minutes, yes, back to 30.
Can I just ask?
That was the guy.
All right. Call the meeting back to order, and we're now at 9.1, the chair's verbal report. And I would like to share with you all that Director Stone. Nope, this is all good. Director Stoner of the District of Squamish has provided notice of leave to commence in June of 24. For a period of 6 months under paid maternity and parental leave for board members, policy number 27-2022. The policy states that the director's absence under the policy is deemed to be within the board, and a specific request for leave is not required. So that is just for all of your information. And we'll go to the board round table. And I don't have a theme this month, but you only get 2 minutes. Two.
Five?
Two. And I'll start here at area
I attended the civil convention and I did talk to our resolution that the board approved to go to civil on the prior to post wildfire debris cleanup in riparian areas, and it was approved unanimously with a few comments from some of the people in the so it was really good to see that it was approved. Now it's moving on to UBCM. So I'll have to go to that and talk to it there again. So that's really good to see. We have options. The opening was in the Tecumseh language, but the Kamloops First Nations power grounds, which was pretty impressive. That was pretty neat. And we had options for tours. So the first tour I took was of the residential school in Kamloops. And the second tour was at the TRU Trades Center, and it is phenomenal. If you haven't seen that one, it was $30 million. I remember when I was working, I went to the old section of it, and then they built this new one for $30 million. It is literally unbelievable. This past weekend, the RBCA put on a trade show in the Valley, and it was the first gathering, organized gathering for the Valley. And there were a lot of people came through it, and it was, you could feel it where people were actually starting to talk to each other because we haven't had that opportunity in the Valley, especially with all the non-resident property owners that we have in our Valley. So that was really neat to see. And we had a couple of special guests, Mark Phillips and Jai Bremner showed up on it, and they talked to a lot of people, just like I did. I almost lost my voice at the end, talking to so many people, but it was a really good event. That's all.
Thank you. Area B.
Area B, well, I made a few comments about all the fire smarting that's going on and all the good activities and compliments on the TRUACs and so forth. We also had hosted by Fraser Basin Council our wildfire roundtable, and I was so pleased that our staff were there participating, and we acknowledged the amazing contributions of Fire Chief, retired, unfortunately, Fire Chief Darren Oiki. Yeah, say that Mark and Mike were there. That was very good. Fraser River's come up quite a bit, and I mean, as Russell said, thank goodness the spring has been a little cooler and wetter. But mostly, yeah, our minds are on the impending season B cultural prescribed burn that Hoiston did. Incredibly well covered by the CBC and so forth, the national and the radio. And speaking of the radio, I also heard Heather. I was away on my vacation in Quadra, and you did such a good interview with CBC Kamloops. And thank you for talking to CBC Kamloops, because that's kind of our radio station there.
They always call us.
Yeah. And okay, that's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just as Squamish, like as many of the municipalities, lots of work ongoing with housing. We advanced a bunch of initiatives as recently as last night. I think so. I know that's something that everyone at this table is familiar with. So I'll touch on a couple of things that have been happening. Is the House on Biosphere Roundtable, which is a new part of the governance of the Eclipse House on Biosphere region, which we are in our meeting today. that first meeting of that group took place on the 11th of May, so just recently on Gambier. It's really interesting to see that this entity sort of being formed in terms of reference for different areas and the governance coming together. And yeah, so that's that work's underway. Recently, we had the BC Fire Training Officers Association Conference in Squamish. And I know around this table, we talk a lot about emergency preparedness and fire in particular. And this group from obviously from around BC was really interesting to spend a little bit of time with them and listen to both their training, but really their experiences around the wildfires around their various communities. And as this was happening, this was on the 13th, you know, this is when we had evacuations in the Northeast, and we had folks from around that region. And I know that everybody was on sort of high alert, but it really drove home that importance of emergency preparedness and fire training for the communities, which has been a topic here today already. And then I guess last night, Squamish Council received a couple things. Our quarterly report, which I've circulated as boards before, and I'll do that again now, on the activities associated with wood fiber the wood fiber project, both the liquefied natural gas, the export facility, and the pipeline. And it outlines sort of all the pieces that are touch the municipality from a regulatory perspective. So there's a lot of pieces, and part of that as well is council voted to reconsider the temporary use application for the hotel. So that conversation's ongoing. So there's a big update there about all the pieces, and for the first time started to outline some of the issues log as well. So I think it's something that this group should be familiar with, as some pieces of this do come to this body as well. So I'll make sure that gets circulated, and that I'll just say overall interacting with that project between the housing piece and the major projects, which is the wood fiber sort and associated category. Those are two of the biggest bandwidth draws from our organization at the District of Squamish. And then I'll end on Saturday is the opening of the Ocean Front Park in Squamish, which I think will be really remarkable. So if any of the folks that traveled from elsewhere to be with us can have a little look down there, it's going to be a game changer, and I'd love to be able to host the group at either formally or informally for a tour down there when it's online. So after we time up for Saturday. So that's the short version, and we'll see you there. Yeah.
Right, great, see.
Yes, thank you. One thing that Vivian forgot to mention, which was an important thing, on Sunday, we went to Seton. I hitched a ride with Allison and Omar, and went to an open house that Vivian had put on in Seton for the new park. Talking about that, it was very well attended. Vivian did an excellent job. There was a few people that were a little touchy to begin with, but she smoothed that all over. Allison did a good job. Omar did a good job. Yeah, it was a very interesting day. So that was good. Carry on working on that.
Thank you.
Anyways, also, I've got a lot of things going on, like with this weather we're having. It's just wonderful for the farmers. You get a couple of days of rain, some nice weather, fresh snow on the mountains. All the rivers are up, but our snowpack, which we don't have a lot of, we seem to lose it, gain it, lose it, gain it. So that's a wonderful thing. Got logging going on in the Divine area. They're doing helicopter logging. They've been doing it now for, I'd say, about 6 weeks, right up behind our place. And they're actually doing a fairly decent job. It looks like they're taking out some nice wood. It's all second growth, so it's all been logged years ago, so that's a good thing. So keeping people busy there, there's probably half a dozen truckloads a day going out. So that's good, but like I say, they're doing a very nice job. Yeah, it's just, the weekend on the lake was pretty busy, kind of, you know, even with the weather we had. So I think it's, starting out to be a very good, year. Hopefully this weather just keeps moving along into June, and our fire season, if any, will be very short, if at all. So that would be a wonderful thing. Okay.
So we had the Lower Mainland, the LGA was in Whistler, at the beginning of May, which was really great to have everybody in town. Full Salem was the opening keynote, which I thought was terrific. And then our closing keynote was Keith Baldry and Von Palmer, which I thought was really interesting. They was amazing. Yeah, they're good to listen to. They're interesting. And look forward to having that conference back. It's always fun. It overlapped with the BC Hotel Association too, so there was a lot of funny sort of crossovers. But the Minister of Tourism was in town, as was the Minister of Transportation, so it's just a good time. To have a lot of people in town to be able to connect with them. We had a really interesting public engagement. We did the Whistler sessions scenarios, and they were 4 scenarios of the future that could happen. So not what we want to have happen, but what could happen. And it was a community process that brought together people from around Whistler and kind of came up with these. And we'll be using them in a lot of how we plan and think about where Whistler goes. And one of the really interesting ways we did that is we worked with the Arts Council, and they engaged 5 artists who actually took these scenarios and produced art that was, I thought, really interesting and thoughtful about Whistler, who we are, where we're going, what we care about. And it was at the Arts Whistler for the last couple of weeks. It was really great to have that in town. I attended the BC Builds event at the Watt Center in Vancouver. And it is interesting to see that work rolling out. It seems like there's still lots of opportunity to help shape what that ends up looking like and how it finds itself on the ground. And we're excited about being partners with BC Builds on Lot 5 in Whistler. And then, other than that, I would just say, just moving forward as quickly as we can on a lot of the housing projects in our community. Good work being done between the Worcester Housing Authority and the Worcester Development Corporation to make sure we can build more faster. That was a pretty important part of the recent conversation. Build more and build faster. Thanks, Chair.
I know that Squamish has already spoken, but I think Director Crompton is being a bit modest. Now, I want to recognize that as past president of the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, I think for a couple decades, it seems, has been such an incredible influence and for me an inspiration on that board. Has contributed so much and did a fantastic job running the resolution session. And so, and I think the regional district should pat itself on the back for having a significant influence on the Lower Mainland Local Government Association. So I just want to, recognize and thank Director Crompton's commitment and contributions there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Going straight to the.
I also really like to acknowledge Director Compton's modesty. Any seconders?
That's a lot, sure, yeah.
That tastes in my mouth.
I heard it.
I'll be brief. Feels like, I'll say finally, we were on schedule, but our budget season, our process finally came to a close. Like other communities, we're seeing a significant hike. We agreed on a 9.8% tax increase at the village government, and that was most of that increase was based on shoring up infrastructure and what we heard from our community in terms of protecting ourselves as we grow. So a bit of a hit, but I'm happy where we landed. I think the budget was lean and yeah, it's a tough one, but I think we had a good balanced approach. And that process is over for this year. We've got some OCP amendments that are ongoing with regards to some developments that have led to some public hearings or will lead to in the next few days, weeks. So some interesting developments and housing discussions going on at our table right now. A couple fun notes, this past weekend was the Lillooet Nation Rodeo. I think on Monday they had well over 2,000 attendees, probably the highest attendance, not probably, the highest attendance ever. And it was nice that it wasn't 100 degrees out there. It sometimes gets pretty hot in the grounds. But apparently it was a great weekend, so kudos to them for putting that on. And also just a fun note, our men's shed, a group of senior men who have been working together for years to find a home, have finally done so, and it was officially opened a few weeks ago, and I went and had lunch there a few days ago. It's in our line, it's attached to our Lions Villa, and they built a beautiful shop in there. And it's just an amazing, you know, again, they've been working at this for years. Support from us at the village, support from our MP, and others to make it all happen, but really all the credit goes to them for pushing it through. I know the group, a couple of representatives from the Squamish men's shed came up to celebrate with them, but it's just a great little facility, an amazing shop. They're doing things like building book libraries and birdhouses for Canada Day for kids to assemble and other projects. So I told them we're putting all our public works projects through them now for free. But anyway, they've done a great job setting up. And it's just one of those things that, you know, the community pulls together that maybe doesn't get celebrated enough. So glad I mentioned that one here today. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. Thanks.
So, spring's here. I've been out actually talking to the homeless. There's been a few groups around town. So I've just been kind of approaching them and trying, you know, to encourage cleanliness and garbage pickup and needles put away and that kind of thing. And I always figure if I started in the spring and I kind of worked through to the summer, it seems to be really going well. I feel like it is. They know me by name now. So that's good. They know who I am. And, you know, there's things outside of our district office. Like we have a big tree out there and there's electrical plug-in that they can plug in their laptops and everything like that. They plug in, they charge phones, they charge laptops, and I really don't have an issue with that. Like people are like, turn on the sprinklers and they'll go away and everything. But, you know, I don't have an issue with that. And I'm pretty vocal in calling that. I support what you're doing. If you support keeping it clean, there's garbage cans right there. There's garbage cans right there. I don't want to find needles here. I don't want to see garbage here. And they've been really great at doing that. So I've been kind of moving around to some of the parks and just, you know, just talking to them. I think it's really working. Last 10 months, I know I've been whining about not having a CAO, so I'm pretty excited to say we have a CAO. Joe McCullough, he'll begin his role June 3rd. Although he's been kind of hitting the tops of the waves with us as he finishes his current role in his job duties. And he comes to us with extensive 27 years in government operations spanning Alberta, BC, and his native home in Glasgow, Scotland. He's got a heavy Scottish accent, but he's got vast experience in horticulture and arboriculture. I think he's like a doctor of trees and shrubs or something. But he's got firefighting, emergency preparedness, response training, along with strong professional background as a director of operations. He comes to us with experience in economic development, utilities, and many other attributes. And I'm pretty positive that everybody will be meeting him soon because he's dying to meet all of you. So it's really great.
Oh, well done.
Yeah.
Ready?
they've used up all my time.
I know.
And I don't
But you've
mind
got the
because I'm
regional.
gonna, well, I'm gonna have it all tomorrow, so
Yeah.
tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So I think you can wait for Area D until tomorrow.
Very gracious.
9 o'clock at the Chatterbox Cafe at the museum.
Just for the board members.
That's very important. Yeah, sorry. Thank you.
At Britannia Beach.
That's it. Okay, thank you. 9.2 electoral area A tax services funding for the 2024 budget.
I'll move with those presented.
Okay. Director Herford, questions or comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. And 9.3, electoral area C amenity funds, tax service funding for 2024 budget. Director Matt,
I'll move both facts.
thank you. Seconded by Director Crompton. Questions or comments? Call the question. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. We're on correspondence for action, 10.1, a letter from the Premier regarding an invitation to us to request meetings during UBCM convention, to meet with the Premier or, cabinet ministers. And the deadline for submission is, June 21st, so we do need to have those requests sorted. We do have, a list here. I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, I just have a list of, motions or meetings that were supported last year as a reminder for everyone. First one being Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure and Minister of Finance to discuss various requests that the SLRD has already made for the province of regional transit system. So I think one of the things is, we continue on with that, which we could just almost copy verbatim. The other ones that have been submitted last year and were met with was in respect to the Minister of Health to assess the Sky Master Planning process currently, that was last year underway by Vancouver Coastal Health, and emergency management and climate readiness to discuss how railway track maintenance is critical component to the province's wildfire mitigation strategies. And of course, for anything that we decide from this board for those meetings.
It's a little looser. We like to put them on the application, but it can totally change because things change and we get busy. We get conflicted on being in 2 meetings at the same time, so, for your benefit, we put meetings on there, but it's,
in the end, it's loose.
It's whoever shows up.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we try and like share the meetings amongst us so that everyone gets a chance to go to a meeting that they're interested in.
I believe I think in the application process was part of there because it's required.
For sure.
When we make the meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's a general discussion about what meetings everyone would like. There's hot topics include emergency management and seeing a trend in provincial funding to fund more recovery in order to be able to allow amenity builds, select funds to be going to other community values. And regional transportation should continue on that docket and open the table for any other suggestions.
We're gonna see in Paradise Valley tomorrow. We're gonna see the road shots. So the contentious, isn't the road that isn't a road. I know Mark's been in contact with, a couple of ministers. I know that, CAOs in the past have done that. I'd like to, I'm not sure which ministry to talk to, which is the best one, whether it's MOTI or whether it's forestry. But I would like that to be a.
We can ask for joint, we can ask for MOPI and forestry together.
Yeah, because it's all linked with the leases that those people hold and You know, they can't, some of them were transferred to be simple, the others are, and they said, no, we can't, because you don't have public access. And it's complex. But that's
Anyone else?
Yeah. The wildfire last year, we took communications, lost one of the main towers. And back and forth with that, their ministry. They were going back and forth, but there was no way that they could get any funding on the connectivity, even though they previously got a couple of $1 million from the ministry. So there's nothing left from the ministry because of that program. And I would like to talk to whichever ministry it is on that topic, because they did start talking about funding infrastructure such as that. It's not local government.
It would be-
It's a local government that will fund it.
Yeah, it would be Lisa Bear's Citizen Services.
Yeah.
And they did the connectivity project and all of that funding for the last mile, so
Yeah.
we can put that request forward. Sure, it's not.
Sal, can you email me just the topic?
You bet.
So I have two. The one is we did at Lower Mainland Local Government Association have a successful resolution on farm events. And I think at this point, it might be worthwhile to have a ministry staff to our staff. I don't think at the minister level at this point, but staff to staff meeting might make sense to lobby on that issue. And then the other one, and to put this out to the group a bit more is, and I don't suggest that this become part of the regional transit discussion, and it's maybe a separate meeting. But I think, you know, it's come out in numerous housing discussions, and I believe at our housing forum, but the idea that there's other pieces, and, you know, I sometimes hear about siloing in some of the regulations, so making sure that local transit, which I think is supportive of regional transit, and all these pieces are being planned along with the housing regulation, and in particular, I am focused on that local transit piece, because I think that is in part an obstacle to some of our regional transit aspirations and an obstacle to doing some of the housing things. And so I would advocate for some sort of discussion around making sure as we progress on regional transit and housing and so on, we're paying attention to the local transit piece as well. I'm not sure if that resonates with people, but.
I think it does. I think that the objective can be met within the regional transit conversation, rather than asking for 2 meetings and only getting 1 or getting none. Whereas, like, I think that supports the need for, like, a regional transit win would support better connectivity within the community to that hub. And so I like where you're going with that, and I think that that would be a valuable ask, you know, as part of the whole conversation around regional transit. Not to take away from your own ask as the district of Squamish for support for a local. I mean, we all know that we were 3 years with no increases to our local transit service, and we were, which meant we had less service, not the same. So, and then we all got a little bump, or many of us got a little bump. But how those all connect, and then the kind of proving out the model that transit is a far better investment for community wellness than more road infrastructure. And so I think we can certainly support that conversation within the regional context. Yeah. And then if District of Squamish asked for a meeting with MOPI just on local transit, we can hit it there. Be sure Minister Fleming will be happy to hear from them. Okay, anyone else? Is there anything else? On a regional scale?
One thing that I don't know if this is the proper place, but we are still in an emergency evacuation for one one property at Reed Road. It's an ongoing, never-ending weekly emergency evacuation. And is it worth having this, taking that step?
I think Russell and I should request a meeting with Mr. Ma. Again,
Yeah.
we've had the conversations and staff have had conversations and staff and family have had conversations, but I think it would be valuable for us just to.
So the issue that we had with the hydro issue, Heather, that seems to have been taken care of today.
Okay.
So far, so good for today.
Okay,
For today.
all right.
Your office, Jack.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is a wrap up of what we're asking.
This is what I think I've captured, and maybe if we can capture names of while we go through this. The first one being Paradise Valley Road or rural road service in general, meeting with Ministry, Modi and Forestry regarding the Misty, what do we call it? Jack Webster, the Jack Webster.
You want to still call it that?
Misty Lane, yeah. Regarding that, we can bring them better.
Do you wanna just add names to it now?
Yeah, so obviously Director Rainbow.
Yeah. Director Demare? Do you want to talk rural roads?
No.
No?
We've got a lot of issues, I think.
Okay,
I want to really focus on that
yeah,
one situation.
Yeah.
because it's,
okay.
So we'll just focus on that specific area.
Good.
I can attend that one if that's questionable.
Oh, that would make sense.
Yeah, yeah. Good. Okay.
Anyone else?
Just with that for now.
Okay, Lost Tower. So I did not, but a Lost Tower and Wildfire, Downton Lake Wildfire. Talking to the Ministry of Citizen Services.
Yeah.
And that will be Director Demare.
And backup? Yeah. Director Hopple?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, next one is farm events. But that is staff to staff,
Oh,
not
yeah,
industry to ministry.
yeah.
And
I think Director Rainbow on that one, too, maybe, or?
Well, if it's staff, it's staff.
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Perfect.
and the regional transit, I think you could probably almost,
We go with the
Depending
on that. Go with the, okay, yeah.
okay.
And if, remember, we had members from the Lillooet Nation and Squamish Nation on the committee as well. But I don't know if they can really long. So we can extend the invitation to them. During that, we will free up time for conference.
Yeah.
For help, right?
Okay. And emergency recovery. Basically to EMCR, to Minister Ma about Reed Road.
Yeah.
And that would be
Russell.
and then the last one would be speaking to, the Ministry of Emergency Services, Mercy Management about provincial funding for additional provincial funding for recovery. And we can flesh out specifically what that means.
Okay.
And that would be like,
I'm just wondering if in that discussion, some of the other challenges is that we've discussed at this table with regards to recovery, if we. That's a bigger conversation that we would.
Yeah.
Not just planning, if we want to bring other elements to that conversation, some of the challenges we face with the government recovery,
Yeah,
and that's a question.
There's also a request from the group of 27, which is all the chairs of all the regional districts are working together to go as one big group. Obviously, not everyone is going to go, but representing that group on a bigger scale, that recovery rates, which is pretty cool. Led by Comox Regional District.
Yes, we're done.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. So, yeah,
Just one, so whether this would be appropriate for Minister Kang or whether it would be a staff thing. I was talking to Kristen about it, a motion, a resolution we made a couple of meetings ago about looking into incorporation.
oh,
Yeah, her ministry offers some money so that you can hire a consultant to do stuff. And neither Kristen and I know that much about it. It would be useful to sit down with someone that really knows what they're all about. So again, whether it would be minister or whether it would be a staff to staff.
I think so.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'd like to hire that.
So, CAO to Marika would probably be, or Gab.
And that's actually for municipal, that's the next item on the agenda, right?
Yeah.
Ministry of Municipal Affairs.
Can I just ask?
Oh, sorry, I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So these letters, if I'm correct in how I understand them, there's the Office of the Premier to ask for the Premier's meeting, and then there's the Municipal Affairs manages all ministries. So that there's just one staff member that manages all meetings.
So we
So
skip.
we get two letters, but yeah. So we'll receive both letters, 10-1 and 10-2, and move the recommendation as just detailed.
I just have one question. Do we normally invite Jordan to those? Cause I
Yeah.
know he was there last time and he was great when I was talking about health and everything.
Yeah.
And we invite Jackie, our MLI too.
Yeah, we typically have that conversation closer to, and we'll, extend that invitation as appropriate rather than just blanket all. Yeah. There, hand over here.
Do you wait for the meeting to be confirmed and then do that
Yeah,
invitation? Okay.
Yeah, because if we invite them and we don't get any tweets, then,
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was an automatic, but we.
yeah. Okay.
Question?
Yeah.
So then that brings, what you pointed out brings something up for me. Do we specifically want a meeting with Premier Dagan? In the first? Do we do the same thing?
Oh, yeah. We could request the regional transit meeting. Yeah. Everyone comfortable with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
They specifically asked not to have the same meetings for the different people, so if you're gonna ask regional transit, maybe you only ask the.
Yeah. Yeah. Because the other way to cut that would be to ask the Minister of Finance for that meeting, but. All right, yeah, go ahead.
I think the Premier's the spot for this, because I think the sort of the other paths that we've been trying have really been like the folks that are implementing, but the direction needs to come from elsewhere, like, finance is going to be involved, but they're not driving the bus. There it is. There we go. Yeah, so I think that's the right approach.
They certainly are not.
We have many ways to work it.
So good.
We are here for bus drivers.
We not even get a bus, we need a bus first.
We have one more, go ahead.
Minister of Finance,
Four.
BC Hydro Trust. That's who you have to go through.
Where are we at with that?
We delayed until after fuel review in June.
Right,
That's.
we can put it on the list,
Yeah, totally.
last.
And that will be Director Demare. And
Anyone?
Well, it doesn't include area B.
Let's
and-
put Jen on that one. She won't be there, never mind. She might be there. We don't know. It's not for us to decide. She's,
I will
You
be
want-
there with a very small child in tow, so no guarantees that I can make a meeting.
I love it. We'll put you on the list and you can decide if you choose.
Here's the lead.
Yeah.
Mr. Conroy will love that baby of yours.
Okay, we'll open a lot of doors.
Yep. All right.
Did you get all that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
The best way to ask for money is with a baby in hand.
Yeah, exactly. She can't say no.
You're the daycare meeting.
We good? Okay, so we're moving receipt of 10.1 and 10.2, and we're putting in the recommendation or the requests for meetings as laid out previously. Motion, Director Mack, second, Director Rainbow. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carried. Russell's trying to make me laugh. All right, 10.3. A request for funding from Squamish Environmental Conservation Society Wildlife Connectivity Action Plan, and this was from Area E to support the development of Wildlife Connectivity Action Plan and related biodiversity and conservation strategies.
No,
Would you like to speak
I would
to it?
like to defer this.
Okay,
I got this request via planning. They're asking for twice as much as we granted them last year. They got a $20,000 grant from us last year. They're asking for $40,000. All I know about it is the letter that you've got in the package. I sent an email to somebody, Gwen, and asked for some more information. I haven't had a response from that. So, and I haven't had a chance. I was intending to be better prepared for today, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Suzanne in the last while. I'm not sure where I would pull the 40,000 from. I'm not sure whether we should be given the 40,000 without a little bit more information. So having said all that, I want to move that we defer this to July.
okay, second.
Or the
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank
That
you.
was June, right? Just, that's what I seconded, I think.
June.
Is that where you landed?
First, yeah.
The next meeting.
All right, June. I said July. If you think we could probably do it in June.
Okay. All right. Moving on. We are at late business 12.1, a director's report regarding travel expenses for Director Demare. Moved by Director Herford, seconded by Director Mack. All in favor? Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Are there any notices of motion? All right, and we'll skip the.
You didn't look at them.
I did too. I absolutely did. I was like, you didn't look at me. All right, we're skipping 14 until 4 o'clock. So could I have someone move that we go into closed? Moved by Director Herford, seconded by Director Rainbow. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.